Hey folks, and welcome to Typology, the show in which we explore the mystery of the human personality through the lens of the Enneagram. My name is Anthony Skinner. I'm the producer of the show, and we're celebrating today the end of Season 2. We're about to hit Season 3, but we wanted to give you a best of series with Season 2 and wanted to thank you for making Typology such a huge success with now well over 6 million downloads. So a big thank you to all of you who have helped to make that happen. Today, we've got Aaron Niequist on the show, and we are covering subtypes. If you're not familiar with subtypes, it is such a huge component of understanding yourself and understanding the Enneagram. So this is a big, big treat. Let me tell you a little bit about Aaron. Aaron has served as a leader in some of the more influential churches in the country. In 2014, he launched a neo-liturgical, ecumenical, practice-based service at Willow Creek in Chicago. He also created a series of liturgical recordings called A New Liturgy to help people create holy space wherever they find themselves. He is the author of The Eternal Current, How a Practice-Based Faith Can Save Us from Drowning, and he continues to create resources to help us all flesh it out. Now, of course, his wife is bestselling author Shauna Niequist, and they live in Chicago with their 2 children. Ian will get into more of that, I'm sure. That's it for me, Anthony Skinner. I hope you enjoyed this best of Season 2 on Subtypes with our guest Aaron Niequist and our host, Ian Cron.
Hey Typology Tribe, Ian Cron here. It's been an exciting journey, and I'm excited today to have with me a really great friend who I've known for many years, Aaron Niequist, who's a 4 on the Enneagram. And for those of you who are listening, we're going to explore some odd territory today. We're going to go some places that are going to be great for every single number to know and learn about. So, with 2 4s on the line, I need to say that because otherwise everyone will just assume that all we're going to do is kind of go to Eeyore and, kind of just talk about ourselves for a long time. I'll wait till later to do that. Aaron, for those of you who don't know him, has served as a leader at really some of the most influential churches in the country. I first met you. You had just left Mars Hill.
Yeah.
You were.
Yep.
How long have you been married to Shauna by that point?
Well, at that point, maybe about 10 years.
Oh, okay.
But do you remember where we had our first Enneagram conversation? Do you remember what town?
No.
Capernaum.
You're kidding.
The Sea of Galilee. No, really. So we're like on this trip, and I'm wandering around. I don't know a soul on this group. It's my first time in the Middle East.
Oh my gosh.
We're wandering down. It was 200 degrees. And we were looking at, there's there's Peter's house and whatever. And you and I got into a conversation about the Enneagram. It's probably 2010 or something like that.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? So that was your and my first conversation. And you were one of the few people that I had ever met who even knew about the Enneagram.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And you'd known about it for years, obviously. And so I just remember talking about both realizing we're 4s with some 3-wing and,
Right.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Long time ago.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, you have been a leader at a bunch of really great churches. And now you have a new book out called The Eternal Current. Has it dropped yet?
Yes. Just came out this last week, August 7th. Super excited.
So this is the week.
This is the week.
Oh my gosh, I have you on the week of your book release.
Wow.
Week. Awesome. So The Eternal Current, How a Practice-Based Faith Can Save Us from Drowning. So you got to explain the book because that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, basically it's all the things that Ian Cron has taught me over the years. It's just a list of, then he taught me this, then he taught me, no. What's funny is you're actually in the book a bunch of times, but it's maybe slightly more than that too. Basically, it's my journey about my faith falling apart, and then 2 different pathways kind of got me back connected. One is moving from a beliefs-based faith to a practice-based.
Yeah.
So I grew up thinking, basically, Jesus wants you to believe 4 or 5 facts, and then say a prayer about those, and you're good. 2. The invitation is participation, to join with what God is doing in the world and in me. So it's like beliefs-based to practice-based. And then from thinking my tradition was the whole story, and everyone else had none of the truth, and our little tribe had all the truth, to realizing that we were just one tiny sliver of this whole story. Mm-hmm. And so much of the last couple of years and so much of the book is what we've learned from different people of faith, specifically in this book, ecumenical, so different Christians who are learning to kind of swim in this current. So.
Over the last 5 or 6 years, I think I've shared this with you before, just a ton of reading about Tibetan Buddhism. And because I'm partially curious as to its allure in the West, which is increasing, and also because they oftentimes explain things that are in our tradition, but they actually describe them in ways that I think they do a better job than we do. Like if you really want to understand compassion, I would really suggest. I could name lots of people of the Christian tradition that can talk about it very well, but I've never heard anyone talk about it better than the Buddhists. So anyway, and they are, I think, part of the allure of Buddhism is it is a profoundly practice-based
yes,
science
absolutely.
or philosophy, religion for some, but mostly a philosophy.
Yeah.
Because I think people realize that to get something into the bones and blood, to experience real transformation, requires mediums, ways to integrate things that you believe in your mind into your heart and into your body.
Into your actual body. In the book, I use this kind of silly analogy, but it was like, imagine if you're trying to run a marathon and you go to the local fitness center and they say, oh, wonderful, come back to the back room. We have an expert who's going to give a lecture. Maybe a U2 cover band is going to play some music. And and you'd be like, this is helpful. This is inspiring. Like, I'm learning some things. But then they say, come back next week and we'll do it again. And you're like, I'm getting no closer to actually being the kind of person who can run a marathon because no one's helping me in my actual body. So that's some of the heart of the book and just this invitation into participation.
Okay, so for the sake of transparency, I have actually read the book. So in asking you what it was about to describe it, I was setting you up to talk about it, which was better than if I were. And I just have to commend it to everybody. It's a terrific book, and it's a timely, important book. For a long time, I've felt very deeply that the church needed to kind of shed its anxiety about learning from people more widely, opening its mind and its heart to a broader sources of thought and practice that could really help them,
Thanks, man. And can I be totally transparent? You were one of the people I was most nervous to read it.
Really?
And not because you haven't been kind and encouraging through the years, but
because I haven't.
In addition to the fact that you haven't been kind throughout the years. No. You've been swimming in these streams a long time. And in fact, a number of things, a number of themes actually started in conversation with you through the years. I don't know if you remember it. Yeah, so we could go back. So that means a lot that you would at least say it's not terrible.
Well, it is a wonderful book. You should be very proud, and I just encourage everybody to get a copy of The Eternal Current, how a practice-based faith can save us from drowning, so that, because trust me, it will really help you maybe find what you didn't even know you needed. And that's when a book really hits a home run for me,
Yeah. Well, so many of the people that I'm meeting and I have experienced is we get to this point where our faith just doesn't seem to work anymore. Like for me, it just felt like it ran out of gas. Like the air conditioner was running, blowing warm air. Like it didn't work anymore. And so many of us feel like we have one of two options, which is either, I guess, just double down on what hasn't worked for a long time. And a lot of really good people, for a number of reasons, do that. Or jump ship from everything pertaining to faith or Jesus or the Beatitudes, or jump ship from the whole thing. And if there's one thing I could say with this book, it's those are terrible options.
Yeah.
And they're not the only ones.
No.
We don't have to either sell out or jump ship.
Nope.
There is a third way. There's probably many, many, many third ways. So I hope this is a little bit of that.
Totally. Well, I'm eager for that book to get into people's hands and for them to hear about it from someone who is, lived it, not just speaking about it in some theoretical, abstract way. And so that's exciting. All right, so
thanks, man.
Years ago, when we first spoke about the Enneagram, and we had this wonderful epiphany that we were both fours. And that we shared a common wing. Mm-hmm. Did we talk about subtypes? Because what subtype are you?
No, we didn't. And this is how can I be a guest on your show? I don't know what subtypes are or what mine is.
Are you kidding me?
So this is confession time.
That's part of a practice-based faith. So
yeah. Am I kicked off?
No.
Should we just shut this thing down?
No, I'm a priest, so I can actually take your confession. I can hear
Father,
it.
please forgive me. Yes.
How long has it been since your last confession?
Oh, you don't want to know.
All right. Well, this might be interesting because everybody, I get so many questions about subtypes. Everybody goes, please say more about subtypes. Please say more about subtypes. And it's a great question, actually, because there are multiple variations of type. So you have pure type, right? Like just the type. Then you have a type along with a wing. Well, now you've got a type plus another version of that type, right? Now, and then you have a stress point and you have a security point. Well, now there are two more variations of that type, right? And I think what happens with each variation is you get another degree of clarity about the nature of the type itself. You know what I mean? Like it's different flavors and expressions, right? One of the most important next steps a person can take after they know all that stuff, those are the basics, is to go and learn their subtype. If you are somebody who, like, for example, who can't figure out your type, I would take you to what are called instincts and subtypes, because, that's another way of kind of getting at type, all right? Now, I'm not going to start with instincts per se. I'm just going to talk about the different subtypes, all right?
Okay.
They are based on three different human instincts, right? One is the instinct for self-preservation, right? These are basic survival instincts. So self-preservation is, how do I keep me alive? That's my number one thing I'm thinking about, right? The second one is a social instinct, right? Which is, okay, I need my herd to survive. I need to be part of a herd. So what do I got to do to get the herd to protect me? And where am I in the herd? Am I limping in the way back? Am I about to get picked off? Because, it's not good. If you don't have a herd, that's how you kind of like stay safe. The third instinct is the sexual or the bonding or the one-on-one, just depends on who you are, what you call that third one. And that's really the whole, obviously, instinct for the continuance of your line, right? The continuance of the species is also part of, one of those three instincts, right? And all three of those, we all have all three, but we tend to have one that's dominant.
Yeah.
And then one that is repressed, and then one in the middle. So you think of it like a cake, right? Like a three-layered cake.
Yep.
Now, I will say this about instincts before I move on to the subtype. Like, you can learn the instincts apart from subtypes, apart from the Enneagram, and get a tremendous amount out of them. Okay? I mean, just by knowing those three instincts, where you are dominant, repressed in those instincts, because it explains in many ways why it is that you get along with some people and why you don't get along with others. Why you and your spouse may have more conflicts around similar themes, because you may have two different instincts that are dominant at that time. Yeah. Right? Now, you always have all three, but man, one is repressed, one is dominant. Right? So just based on what I just told you, of those three instincts, which do you think is more, and I'll dive down into more detail about them in a second, but of those three, what sounds like would be dominant and repressed for you?
Yeah, well, I would say I lean towards one or three, not the herd one.
Okay.
That not the social one.
Okay.
But that the self-protection, or it's always weird to talk about the sexual one, because I know it means more than just, what that often means.
Okay, well, let's actually actually like sort of like
push into that.
Yeah, because it's the names of them are not nearly as broadly described, as what they really are. So if you're okay, let me just say this: if you are a social subtype, right?
Yeah.
Of any number, okay?
Yeah.
Then you have a really strong desire to win the approval or to be liked and to feel safe in the company of other people, right?
Sure.
So people who have a dominant social instinct are, how do I say this? They're focused on being accepted and necessary.
Yeah. Okay?
Accepted and necessary. Maintaining the sense of self that they get by being part of the group. So this is kind of Riso and Hudsonish, but let's just imagine that a social subtype, when they walk in a room, right? Let's say they walk into a party. They would be immediately aware of like the power structure in the room, whether they're being accepted or integrated or not.
Right.
They are attuned to the idea of who am I relative to others. And they, of all the subtypes, want to know more about what's going on in the world, right, than anybody else, right? They need to touch base with people to feel alive and excited and part of life, right? So they are all about interacting with people, and because that will build not only personal value but safety and take care of them in the group. Okay, so that's the social kind of instinct. Yep. Does that make sense?
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. Yep. So if you are a person that is, let's say, a sexual subtype, right? So now I'm sort of bleeding those two words together, and that's fine for now. These are people who are all about one-on-one relationships.
Yeah.
Okay. They are like constantly searching for a connection, and they are very attracted to intense experiences, right? So to draw a correlate, it's almost like sex, right? It's almost the same thing. It's like, all right, so let me give you an idea of this. My wife is a sexual 9, okay?
Okay.
Now, you've met Annie. She is the most laid-back person, easygoing, everything. But I have to say, like, go skiing with her. Like, we went to Jackson Hole one time, and now she grew up on ski mountains, growing up as a kid. She went down runs that didn't exist off the top of Jackson Hole. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think I've told this story before, but we were in Zimbabwe, I think, on the Vic Falls Bridge, right? And I was talking to a group of people, and I turn around, and she is strapping herself into a bungee cord to go off the Vic Falls Bridge, which, I mean, is insane. And we have 3 kids at home, little kids. And I'm running down the bridge, go, no, don't do it. I'm Nicolas Cage from Raising Arizona. Don't leave them with me,
Yep. And so for her, it's the intense experience?
Totally. And they are all about connections with others. So if they show up at a party, they're going to find one person that's really interesting. They're going to scope out the most interesting person in the room and sit with them. And they'll spend the whole time connecting with that person. So like that's the big deal. Now, if you were a self-preservation type, right, you'd be walking in the room thinking, hey, what's the temperature in here? I'm not feeling very comfortable. Like, where's the food?
Yep. Is there a fire extinguisher somewhere just in case?
So that's more 6, but they would be, they're just more focused on matters having to do with their own survival. So like, I'm a self-preservation 4. And so watch how this works out with instincts and subtypes.
Yeah.
Before I knew about subtypes, I could never understand why Anne was not as concerned about maintenance on the house.
Yeah.
The aesthetics of the house. Okay, so I'm a 4 and a, why she wasn't as concerned about keeping things in order. You know, like and she couldn't understand why I wasn't as concerned as she was about our one-on-one relationship.
That's so, oh man. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So now that
This is easy. This is clear. Crystal
all
clear.
right, which of those?
Oh man. I would be a sexual 4.
Right.
It's all about the connection. When you talk about a party, finding one person who's really fascinating and going deep for an hour, that is me all day long.
Well, and Shauna is
And
a 7.
Shauna is the opposite. She doesn't want to get trapped by any one person. She wants to meet everybody. She has the self-preservation thing too. She's aware of the room, and she's really great.
Okay,
at that
so
too.
all right,
so
so
we're
this
pretty
is
opposite.
all right.
On these
So
ways.
we have similar
Yeah.
experiences. Now, if you were a social 4,
Yeah,
as she is, you would have far fewer conflicts
yeah, that's right.
because those instincts represent values.
Yeah, yeah. But isn't the social value, at least on the surface, a little bit in contrast to the 4's basic? How can I be worried about how I'm fitting in? Because as a 4, I'm always trying to not fit in.
Well,
or is that just the awareness?
Well, we'll go through the subtypes of different 4s.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And the reason I
Okay.
say this is important is because, and this is
Yeah.
great for everybody, just knowing those 3 instincts.
Yeah.
Now, before we do that, which of those do you think is repressed? Like, what is just the one that you least are, like, I mean, you still have it. It's just in the hierarchy of instincts would be
yeah.
the 3rd one.
If it's Shauna's birthday,
Yeah.
or it's our 20th anniversary. Yeah. Okay, let's just say that's coming up in like 2 years. Our 20th anniversary. I would love some sort of romantic, her and I go to Rome, just her and I for 3 days. Okay. Right. She just wants me to find all the burned out light bulbs in the house and replace them. That's all she wants. That's all she wants.
Okay, that is awesome because
that would communicate love to her more than a billion roses.
Absolutely. And you see how, like, just knowing the instinct stack, apart from the Enneagram, is so helpful. Yes. Because then people, it's a lights on moment.
Yeah. So when we were newly married, and she didn't want to connect with me yet again at some soul level, like we just had the conversation yesterday, but I want to do it again, I would feel like she doesn't care about me.
Yes.
She doesn't want to connect with me. She doesn't want, and she's not even reading that. She's, so anyways. Yeah,
it's just not at the top of her hierarchy. So part of the reason knowing instincts is great, just in general, is that you begin to understand that, it's not that she doesn't love it. It's just that it's not natural to her.
Yep.
And instincts are very deeply embedded, right? At the deepest level.
Yep.
So when you know it, again, self-knowledge, you can begin to make corrections to accommodate the realities of your partner or just to understand yourself and why your attention naturally gravitates towards certain things, right? Yeah. So for me, as a self-preservation type and Annie as a sexual type, I have to learn to say, forget the bills, let's just have dinner tonight and talk.
Yeah, that's so good. Yep. And I have to say, instead, for the first part of our date tonight, let's have that conversation about the 4 or 5 things that need to be fixed up in the house. Because I know you've mentioned those and I've kind of brushed them off. Let's talk about it. Let's make a list. Let's do it. Yep. And what's funny is I resist that so deeply because it feels anti-human connection. But anytime I can, stumble into that direction, I realize it's total human connection. It's loving my wife, who I love more than anyone, in a way that she can feel it.
Totally. So for me, the part of the work of transformation isn't just knowing my type or my wing or this. Which is, that's terribly important. It's also about knowing the finer distinctions of my type. So the more I know about it, the clearer it gets, right? And the more the work becomes clear to me. So I know, for example, I have to really work at that one-on-one thing to meet Annie where she lives. And she knows, hey, don't leave mail all over the table. Don't do this. Because for me, the house is kind of a sacred space. It's like my instincts are all about that space and home. I'm all about like I'm the one who worries about life insurance. I'm the one who worries about my kids' safety, more, like
Yep.
their physical
Yep.
safety. Annie would let my kids do anything. Seriously, like she would let
Yep.
them,
Yep.
oh, you want to climb the flagpole at the Empire State Building? Great, go ahead and do it. Every kid
Go
should do
for
it.
it.
Yeah, I mean, go see how hard the wind's blowing up there. And I would be like, I'm like Woody Allen,
Yep.
the consummate Jewish father running around underneath. Like when they were playing in their crib, I got nervous,
Right.
So, all right. So
Yeah.
just knowing those instincts.
That is fascinating.
Isn't that cool?
Yes.
Like so important.
So good.
So important. And
Yep.
now, and of course, in a perfect world, you would learn to bring them into balance.
Yeah. Yep.
Learn to bring them all into balance with self-awareness, and just be aware of because you can be healthy and kind of unhealthy around subtypes and instincts.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
One observation is when Shauna and I have got into the most trouble with this is when we felt a scarcity.
Yes.
Like there can only be either sexual energy or self-preservation energy. Like it's only one or the other, so who wins? Which nothing is like that, right?
No.
And so as we can integrate it in ourselves and then integrate it together, that feels like it opens up all these possibilities.
Yep. No, totally. And the thing is, remember, like I said earlier, these instincts are so deeply encoded, and if you're unaware of them, they are drivers.
Yep.
So
Yes.
that is all you're thinking. It's either this or nothing.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. That's right. Well, and you even said they're not just instincts; they're values.
They can, yes,
They're
they have values.
The core. Yeah.
They form values, like what's most important in life, and why don't you see that guide you that this is the most important area of life that matters?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Well, they all matter. We have all three. I'm not going to go too
course.
much further into the instincts, but I want to tell you how subtypes come out of instincts.
Okay.
So when your instinct meets the deadly sin or passion of your type, and I'm not going to go into all the details of it, the mechanics of it, it creates like 3 different subtypes within your type. Okay?
Okay.
So if your instinct is, self-preservation, social, when envy hits it as a 4, so for example, if you don't know your type, and I just described to you those 3 instincts, and you said, I really connect with this one, then I would go to the type that you thought you were and read you that subtype.
Okay.
So, all right, now before we go to that, because I'm going to describe all 3 of the 4's subtypes.
Okay.
And here's why. 4s and 6s, the difference between those 3 subtypes is so dramatic that they might as well be 3 different numbers.
Fascinating.
Yes, I mean, seriously.
Okay.
The rest of the numbers...
But just with 4s and 6s?
Just 4s and 6s. Now, because of the other types, it's more nuanced and shaded differences.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
But with these 3, it's stark. Really stark.
Fascinating.
Okay?
All right. Hit me.
Well, before we go on, let me just say this, because I want to tell our folks about the sponsor for today's show, Typology. You know this, Aaron, like I'm a therapist, I'm a spiritual director, I'm a priest, so I'm always out there encouraging people to, go to counseling and therapy or spiritual direction. I think it's fantastic, right? Obviously. But one of the things I've learned personally is that not everyone benefits from like a traditional 50-minute hour or weekly session, which is why even if you have a great therapist, you can go to like therapy as a couple or for yourself for a long time and never really get anywhere. So I got this friend in Colorado. I don't know if you know him or not. He's a great guy. His name is Michael Cusick, and he's got a group called Restoring the Soul. And they do this intensive counseling process. People come in for individual or couples work, for really deep transformation stuff in half-day blocks or over 1 or 2 week periods. And because here's the deal, they know that you can't wait sometimes months or years to get to the bottom of an issue. It's on fire in your life, right? And you need to experience a breakthrough pretty quickly. They've been doing it for 20 years. I've seen firsthand the transformation that it brings about in people's lives. So to typology listeners, if you're looking to get out of the rut, you can't wait months or years, you need to call Restoring the Soul and get a free consultation. Here's the number, 303-932-9777. The number is 303-932-9777. And learn about this intensive counseling process. And if you're a typology listener, as a special bonus to you, go to www.restoringthesoul.com/typology, and you can download a PDF. It's called 5 Ways Unaddressed Trauma May Be Derailing Your Relationships. Anyway, I just want to encourage people to do that. Back to subtypes,
That's great.
Aaron.
Yeah.
All right, so let me just you think you're a self-pres 4, right?
No. Sexual.
Oh, okay. And you think Shauna is a self-pres?
Yes.
All right. So let me just talk about
Definitely.
self-preservation 4s. This is what happens when the self-preservation instinct slams into the deadly sin of envy. This is for 4s, right? Not for the other types.
Okay.
And it what it does is it produces a self-preservation 4, right? All right. So in this type, envy is far less apparent in the self-preservation 4. That's me. I'm a self-pres 4.
Okay.
We experience envy like other 4s, but it's not as apparent to other people. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Instead of being the one, or being someone who has a need to suffer, because 4s have a need to suffer. Like we're so addicted to our suffering. Are you addicted to your suffering?
Of course, yeah. Makes life worth living.
It's kind of delicious, isn't it? to spend the afternoon thinking about all the ways your childhood was a disappointment. Okay, so for self-pres 4s, rather than this sort of, our envy expressing itself as a need to suffer, we're more long-suffering. So in other words, we tend to be quiet and suffer, in the background. And what we're hoping is that people will notice that we're long-suffering, silent-suffering people, people who can endure suffering a long time, and admire it and love us and accept us because we're long-suffering people.
Oh yeah.
And so it's that's a a pretty amazing thing to know about it, because oftentimes self-pres 4s look like 3s or 7s.
Yeah.
And you know what? If I take an Enneagram test, including my own, I come out as a 7 a lot of the times.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or a 3. So the self-pres 4 can be a real workhorse. They're long-suffering. They work really hard. And it's also to compensate for that feeling like, I'm missing something, so I got to work really hard, not sit around and talk about it.
Yep. I have one of my best friends is exactly how you're describing, and you know him, so I won't mention his name, but I have a person in mind that is so clear. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the other 2 subtypes are overly sensitive to feeling frustrated. They either suffer too much, or, as you find out in a minute, they're going to make you suffer too much, right? In order to compensate for their suffering. But a self-pres is what's called the counter type. Every single number has one of 3 subtypes as their dominant one, and one of those 3 is called the counter type, which means it really doesn't look anything like what you'd expect. It looks like it's going exactly in the opposite direction of the passion. Of the deadly sin. In the way that we do it, instead of talking about suffering or we don't complain as a way to earn love.
Right.
We just don't do that. We keep it to ourselves. So that's a self-pres 4, right?
Yep. Okay.
All right. Now, if you were a social 4, that's kind of like the classic. That's what most people hear when they're teaching, right? Okay. That type is more out there with its envy. Its envy is more apparent to other people. And it's also, they're more dramatic openly. They're really the sort of the quintessential 4, like what you think of when you think of 4s.
Yep.
Envy expresses itself in the need to kind of win people's love and belonging by having the suffering right out there. Just putting the envy right out there. And that, of course, is not always a winning strategy, to win friends and influence people.
Yep.
They're oversensitive.
Yeah.
Their envy fuels a focus on shame and suffering. This is for 4s.
Yeah.
And again, all of this to say, like, do you see how different these types are?
Oh, dramatically.
Right.
Different.
It's pretty amazing. Now, let me just tell you about sexual 4s.
Okay.
Because this may hurt a little bit.
I'm already worried.
Are you worried?
I'm bracing myself.
Okay, good. So for us, the sexual 4 isn't as concerned about, like, I'm going to hide suffering.
Yeah.
The social 4 is going to put that suffering right out there. Everyone's going to see it. I'm going to hide my envy, right? And just work to attain what others have to fill my missing piece. The social 4, the work of the envy is pretty clear on the outside.
Okay.
So if the self-pres is long-suffering and the social type is, got their suffering right out there for all to see, sexual ones tend to make other people suffer when they're unhealthy, right?
Yeah.
So your inner motivation obviously is envy, and the way it manifests itself is in competition. Sexual ones are pretty competitive. They don't feel envious of other people. How do I say this? They don't feel envious so much as they feel competitive as a way of quieting the pain associated with envy.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Right? And when they get mad, they express really envious anger.
Yeah.
Well, what is that? Does that signal anything for you? Or?
Well, I hate this conversation, and I think we should change the subject.
Okay.
No, that resonates. I've never been, at first when we started talking, about 4 many years ago, I was like, well, I'm not like the purple hair Mohawk person who needs to stand out,
right.
But there is a much more inward, deeper thing going on that resonates with some of what you're saying.
So if you were an unhealthy sexual 4, right? Think about the way Mariah Carey treats her personal assistants when you read it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not good. So what happens is because they feel like they've been made to suffer in life, they need some sort of compensation for it. And they project their own deficiencies onto others and then beat it up.
Yep.
And then beat it up. So I was actually curious that I was going to guess you were a self-pres 4, actually. But it does make total sense to me given the conversations we've had over the years about stuff that you would be. So actually, here's a revelation for some people. Everyone thinks that maybe the meanest number potentially on the Enneagram, if it was unhealthy, would be what?
An 8.
No.
Really?
No, it's a sexual 4.
Sexual 4. Potentially the meanest number.
Can be the cruelest number.
Cruelest.
Yeah.
Because we project our misery on the person closest to us.
Yes, and also we project what we perceive to be our own deficiencies, the missing piece we have. We throw it on somebody else.
Ooh, yeah.
We project all that stuff onto someone else, and then we go, and then we pound it.
Yeah.
We pound it in them, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Hey, I was going to say, not to go too deep into this. Can we go deep into this? One of the things that has become so central to kind of my spirituality and faith and almost everything is forgiveness. And not that I do it well, but just everywhere I look, it seems to be not just the most important thing, but the only thing. And I wonder if it's connected to some of this, that I feel so deeply both the need to project and point out what's wrong and then crush it, but then also such a deep need to be free from that need. And it seems like forgiveness would be the only way. Again, not that I'm doing it well, but I just keep coming back to it in everything. Yep. What does that make you think?
Well, I think the work of forgiveness is for everybody, and I think I think knowing the Enneagram or some other system like it, it brings clarity as to where the rub is. It's like, because, otherwise it could just be like, well, I need to practice forgiveness. It's like, well, okay, but can you be more specific? Like, could you give me some hints as to where in my life, as my particular type of person, like, where should I focus my energies? Yeah. So you get that self-knowledge and you learn, okay, well, this is how I have to, sort of this is the place I want forgiveness, the gift of forgiveness to leak in to who I am.
Wow.
All right, so to close out on one-to-one subtypes for fours, or the sexual subtype, as it's also called, they tend to act shameless rather than shameful.
Huh.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. You say a little bit more about it?
Well, sometimes this subtype, if it's unhealthy, can be overly demanding of other people.
Okay.
They can, get into relationship troubles because they can be, if they're in a bad space, man, they know your soft spot, they'll hit it.
Okay. Yeah.
So you have a lot of unstable relationships sometimes around an unhealthy four more than the other two, if that's possible. And they love intensity. So when they're in relationship with somebody, they love intensity even more than the other two fours do. Yeah, they just, they want to be on fire with one other person, man. Yeah. They just want to, they want that flame to burn so dang bright. Yeah. And then, of course, when it does, it often burns the other person to a crisp.
Yeah. Wow. I kind of hope Shauna never listens to this episode.
Okay, let's go to sevens, because, I don't want to just focus on fours. I promise people this would be for everybody.
Well, no, I mean, let's go to sevens. You're naming
Hold on a second. Let's go to sevens for a second.
Deep tendencies.
I'm going to go to sevens. You think she's a self-pres 7?
Big time. We used to think she was 7 with an 8.
Right.
And in the last 5 years or so, the 6 wing is so pronounced, which feels very self-preservation.
Yeah. All right. They could you could sort of see the mingling of the two. Of course, wings and subtypes are separate and they're different.
Of course. Yep.
All right. So their name, by the way, each of these types have a kind of a sub name, right? Is the keepers of the castle. That's the self-preservation 7, right?
Interesting.
So remember, gluttony is their deadly sin. When the instinct for self-preservation slams into that, they express gluttony like Beatrice Chestnut would say, like through making alliances.
Interesting.
They collect around them a kind of like a family network of people. They band people together. They create a
circle the wagons.
Totally. They create kind of a like Beatrice called it a mafia. You know what I mean? They've got their posse. Well, why not? It's the herd. Yes. It's the herd. They care about the herd, right?
Yep.
And then what else am I about to say about them? They're very practical. They're good at getting what they want, and getting great deals. They can be a little opportunistic, pragmatic, self-interested, calculating sometimes. But man, nobody networks like a self-pres 7. Because remember, they're trying to get people alliances, people on their side, because that social realm is where they feel like they're going to be kept safe.
Oh, that is fascinating. Yes.
Right? So these are cheerful, they're talkative, amiable, like most 7s.
Yep.
They're people who love pleasure. They are earthy. I don't know how else to describe these 7s. But what they have to work on, again, is, like all 7s, towards sobriety and letting go of their fixation on self-preservation and survival for themselves.
Huh. Yeah.
And, I mean, they're fabulous when they're healthy. All of us are, right?
Yeah.
But for the two of
there is no one better than a healthy 7 at a party or anywhere.
Yeah.
Yep. They make every room better, every moment better.
Yeah. So anyway, go ahead.
What happens when self-pres 7 is trying to circle the wagons to feel safe, to feel this security, and she is married to a 4 who's trying to deconstruct every wagon and show why they are ultimately not worth trusting.
because you should only be interested in me.
Well,
in our relationship, right? I mean,
I hope that's not the case.
Well,
but,
it would be natural.
That might be a factor.
It would be natural, right, for a sexual 4 to think that way, a sexual subtype to think that, because it's like, no, it's just about you and I.
Wow, and the wagons are evidence that I'm not enough.
Right. And that would be so hard for a 4 who happens to be also a one-on-one type.
Oh,
and you might become envious of those other people.
Yeah.
Those alliances.
This is turning into like a therapy session.
Without your spouse there.
Without my spouse, yeah. Oh my gosh.
It's couples therapy for one person.
That's right. But I think she would approve of these realizations because they've definitely made things complicated for her.
Well,
and for us.
but here's the thing. The more you know, the better off you are. I had a guy say to me the other day something amazing, right? He's a Episcopal priest, so, but a very smart guy, Jungian therapist.
Yeah.
He said, the only sin is unconsciousness.
Wow.
Now, a gross overstatement.
Of course.
But I get his point, right?
Yeah.
Like, the less you know and the more deliberate you are about remaining self-ignorant.
Wow.
Like, the worse off you are and the worse you make the world because you're just on autopilot.
Yep.
And you're just hurting yourself, other people. You're just locked in this robotic kind of reactivity that is no help to you or to anybody else. You're asleep.
Yeah. Wow.
So, I mean, I think that, the more you know, and there's a lot to know from the Enneagram and to absorb, the more real estate you have to run around. The more you know, the better off you are to yourself and other people.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So anyway, I hope that's helpful for people.
Yeah.
That instinct stack and then the different kinds of subtypes.
All right. Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
Probably my favorite, the most meaningful thing about the Enneagram is that it doesn't just label you, it offers you a path towards wholeness. So for those of us who are part of the sexual type, what is the invitation usually? Regardless of our number.
Right.
What is the step we can take, the practice we can take, maybe to bring it all the way back to a practice-based Enneagram.
Well, and
right?
I'm glad you're saying that because I think we were talking about this before we started. I'm trying to communicate to people all the time. Look, it's totally understandable that in the beginning when you learn your type that you think, oh my gosh, this explains so much about my past and it explains so much what's going on in the present, not to mention all the other people whose types you've figured out and why they are the way they are. But you don't, most people just kind of stop there. Like that's all they really want to know. And what I'm trying to tell people is like, actually, that's not the right place. That's just the beginning. That's where you start. It's not where you should settle. The Enneagram is a transformational tool that is designed actually to communicate to people that they're not their type. That their type is actually a cover story. It's an unreal self that, think of it this way, it's like a persona that we adopt in childhood to keep us alive, to get our needs met, and because kids immediately pick up very early on in life that who they really are isn't compatible or perfectly aligned with who the important people in their lives want them to be.
Wow.
Okay? So, I picked that up, you picked it up. So,
sure.
So what a kid does who needs to get their needs met, then, their little ego that's all about survival steps in and says, we got to amputate some parts of, of who you are. We got to recraft. We got to actually look into the eyes of parents, siblings, culture, and change who we are to accommodate and to adapt and to become the person they're pressuring us to be. And our peers. Like when you go to school, think about it. Yeah. It's like, okay, who do I got to be? Yeah. And then layers and layers and layers. Okay, so when you were a little kid, what was your number one talent that everybody gave you strokes for?
It would be music. Okay. It would be singing or something like that.
So you would organize your identity around that. It's like, okay, well, let me create a persona who plays. It doesn't mean you don't have the gift. Okay, it's not like the gift is bad, or I don't even want to slam the unreal self because you needed it for a while. The problem is it doesn't go away unless you start to say, wait a minute, I don't think I'm who I think I am. Fours would feel that at age 9, but I think most people feel it around 40. Okay. 35, 40, when they're like, golly, it's like this. I'm in Groundhog Day. It's like I'm doing the same stuff all the time, and somehow or another, it just doesn't feel real anymore. You've exhausted it. It's played out, and then you start going on a search for your real self. Yeah, I see it with people in therapy all the time. It's like,
Yeah, that's interesting.
They got a spiritual malaise or nausea, emotional nausea. They don't know who they are.
Yeah.
Like, who am I? Midlife crisis.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Is in many ways
Yep.
your real self knocking on the door of your unreal self going, I've been waiting to come out.
Yeah.
I need
Wow.
you to know who I really am. I want to be in the world.
Yep.
And that's when you start deconstructing that unreal self, and that's what the Enneagram helps you do.
Yeah.
So, like, I hope people start to get that.
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful.
So,
Yeah.
we unconsciously create a
Yep.
personality and a persona, a new and improved personality, because
Right.
our real self's personality just didn't seem to jive with what everybody wanted from us.
Yep. Yep.
So maybe I would
Wow.
put it this way, and then I'll answer your question. Actually, I think the Enneagram reveals to you who you were before the world told you who you were supposed to be.
Wow. Yep.
And it starts by
Wow.
telling you who you're not.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
It just, okay,
Yes.
so here's the typical
Yes.
persona,
Yeah.
patterns of behavior, thinking, feeling, and acting that your persona uses or used from childhood to get around and survive.
Yes. Oh man.
So, this is like,
Yeah.
that's like if you read Thomas Keating, I know you have, the whole true self,
Yeah.
false self thing. It's the same thing.
Yep. Yep.
So, I
Yep.
mean, again,
Plus, can I do a pitch for your show?
oh yeah.
Your first interview with Father Rohr, he gets into this. The Enneagram showed me that everything I had ever done was for mixed motives.
Oh yeah.
He talked about how the thing that had given me the most success in life was now souring my stomach.
Yes.
Like he had all in like 1 minute, he had all these phrases. You guys were talking about this, and I've listened to that 4 or 5
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Feels very resonant.
So for a sexual 4, the
Yeah.
work is, or the practices, so you have to move like all 4s toward the virtue of equanimity, which is, whatever life throws your way, to respond, not react, but respond with
Yeah.
emotional balance.
Yeah, that's
you
good.
know, with emotional balance.
Can you say that thing you said once about I am the mountain, not the weather system?
Yeah, well,
That really resonated with me as a 4.
yeah. So what that means is, think of like feelings as weather patterns. Like coming over Kilimanjaro, and here comes the rain, here comes the sun, here comes the the snow or whatever. What 4s tend to do is attach themselves and identify themselves as weather patterns, the weather patterns of feelings, and then whatever feeling they have is who they are.
That is it. That is all of reality.
Right.
Yeah.
In reality, I keep telling them is learn to recognize that you're the mountain.
Yeah.
And and then as you get older, I would say work on finding out who the mountain of your real self is, of your real self, right?
Yep. Yep.
So
Yep.
for us, for you, I think, well, particularly for a self-pres, or a one-to-one subtype of a 4, to be with your own suffering without needing to externalize it or project it out onto others.
It's so good. Man.
And to really grow by allowing yourself to contact any deeper pain beneath anger and envy that really needs to be felt. Because here's the deal about 4s that I don't think I've ever said this on the show. Oftentimes what 4s are suffering about isn't what's really causing it, the problems. It's actually, it's almost like look underneath that suffering for where the real suffering is.
They act. Oh wow. Yeah.
Like it's almost like that's
good.
that's
good.
total like
We're one layer away from the actual
thing.
bedrock.
Yeah, it's like the first layer, it's camouflage.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
So back to when we were talking about confession earlier and laughing about it. Like,
yeah.
So when you're hearing someone's confession, you often will say, they'll go through it all, and then the priest will say, is there something else?
Wow.
And then there'll be a pause. They'll say something. You go, is there something else?
Wow.
Because usually there's one waiting down there that they haven't written down or been ready for.
Yep.
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 So anyway,
Wow.
so this was fun.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Right?
Again, I feel like I just went to therapy. This is actually really helpful.
Right. Well,
can I ask one just concrete question? And then,
no,
then
please,
we can
please remain abstract.
stay abstract. So again, like I was kind of joking, like to bring the practice-based thing into the Enneagram, practice-based. Okay, what is a concrete practice that I can do to help me sit with my pain, sit with my anguish, sit with my disappointment, rather than externalize it? Mm-hmm. There's probably many, but has there been one in your life as a 4, or just one that you've seen with other 1-to-1 4s? Just a concrete thing that I can do tomorrow at 2 p.m., rather than just hope I get more healthy.
Yeah, become very aware of your projections. So when you start criticizing other people, or let's say you're around somebody that really pisses you off.
Yep.
Or somebody that, whatever, pay attention to your projections.
Oh, that's so good. Yep.
Keep your eye on them. And then, bring it back to yourself, because what's happening with a 1-to-1 or a sexual 4 or any subtype, any sexual, right, is, there's a lot of projection going on. And so I would just say, pay attention to your projections.
Yep.
And I recommend that to everybody in life, because usually you're just projecting some split off part.
Yeah, I know.
It's a split off piece of the shadow.
Yep.
And you're saying, all right, and then own it, explore it, and feel it for yourself. Don't make others suffer. Feel your own suffering.
Yeah.
Don't.
Oh, it's so good.
Don't just throw it out on somebody else. Feel your own suffering. So I think paying attention to your own projections is a great practice.
Oh.
And then welcome home and integrate that suffering back into your own life. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, brother, I'm glad you were on.
Me too. Thanks so much.
We normally like to go 50 minutes, but for a 4, I always go an hour and 8.
Just can I ask a final question?
Yeah.
Was this the most special podcast episode you've ever had? Was it the most special?
Oh, by 2.
Okay, good. It's twice as special as any other podcast.
For all the mathematical reasons one might expect. No, but I think,
That's
again,
amazing.
I think this whole topic of instincts and subtypes is like just one layer deeper and clearer for people to understand themselves and to be better in the world. And I hope it brought some clarity to every single type.
Yeah, no, it was very, very helpful.
Yeah. All right.
I have some work to do.
Best book on it, boy, I'll tell you, is Beatrice Chestnut's book. Read those sections on subtypes. I think she does the best job of really teasing them out. And maybe I'll have her back on just to do subtypes.
Yeah, please.
We'll kind of just like run through them all super fast. So, brother, thank you. I'm so excited that.
Thank you.
Okay, so everybody, listen up. You need to go buy Aaron's new book, The Eternal Current: How a Practice-Based Faith Can Save Us from Drowning. It just dropped this week, and it's fantastic. I love it. Everybody, go get that book. Brother, my love to you, to Shauna, the kids.
Indeed.
And I admire you. You're a fine human.
Oh.
Glad you're
Thanks
my friend.
so much. Me too.
And my dear friends, remember the words of the great Oscar Wilde. Be yourself. Everybody else is already taken. Talk soon, man.
All right. Blessings.
See ya.